Nigamakalpatarorgalitam palam shukamukat amrtadrava samyutam pibhata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha kalavyala mukagrasa trasa nirnasa hetave Srimad Bhagavatam Shastram Kalau Kirena Bhashitam Etasmad Aparam Kinchan Manashuddhaina Vidyate Janmantare Bhavet Punyam Tata Bhagavatam Labhet Janmantare Bhavet Punyam Tada Bhagavatam Labhet. Swakalyana Gunanantya Kritsna Swadhinata Matihi Bhaktyutpatti Vivruddhyartha Vistirna Dashamoditaha. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, in order to cultivate bhakti, in order for bhakti to blossom and grow, explains in detail his Kalyana Gunas and his unparalleled sovereignty and control over every other entity. The result is what is celebrated as Vibhuti Yoga. A teacher gave an interesting assignment to students in a class. The students were asked to come up with the 7 wonders of the world. And of course, the 7 wonders of the world are quite popular, both modern and ancient. And one after the other, students were submitting the papers after writing down. But there was this usually bubbly, usually energetic, usually very active girl, like one of these girls out here, very pensive, right, sitting in the corner in a mood of contemplation, not ready to give away her paper. Teacher was very keen to know why she was struggling to come up with just the 7 wonders of the world. Pretty easy task. And then she approached the girl and asked, is there any reason why you're struggling to give your paper back? The girl looked at the teacher and said, you asked me to write only 7 wonders of the world. I'm not really sure if I can really come up with a list of only 7. The teacher was quite curious. She said, really? Do you think there are many, many more? Can you just give an example of what the list that you have? Because all others had written, obviously, the great pyramids of Egypt, Taj Mahal, the Pizza Tower in Italy, Burj Dubai, whatnot. Now this girl stood up and said, let me read out what I have. She started reading. The 7 wonders of the world are, or the wonders of the world are, to see, to hear, to talk, to smell, to touch, to laugh, to love. And she went on. The teacher was in a state of amazement. Wonder is something which we all have when we are young. And as we grow up, we stop wondering. And Krishna in the Gita clearly establishes that without wonder, there is no bhakti. And through Vibhuti Yoga in the Gita, Krishna kindles a sense of wonder. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shrimadurjitameva va tattadeva vagachatvam mama tejamsa sambhavam, he says. Mama tejamsa sambhavam. the world is beautiful only because the world maker is beautiful. This is the understanding that kindles bhakti. When we look at the world and start to wonder about the world maker, that is when bhakti strengthens, grows. When we look at a beautiful painting and then we start to wonder not just at the painting but at the painter, that is when bhakti blossoms. Because after all, this world is a beautiful painting and Krishna is the painter. He says, yad yad vibhutimat sattvam srimadujjitameva. Everything that is attractive in this world, we are designed to be drawn towards everything that is attractive. So, in many ways, life is all about rushing towards what attracts us and rushing away from what repels us, isn't it? And when we see anything attractive in this world, Krishna says, recognize that that attraction is just a very small fraction of my infinite attractiveness. Now, in the Uddhava Gita, Krishna once again brings up the discussion around Vibhuti Yoga. We have been seeing parallels between Bhagavad Gita and Uddhava Gita. Now, this is another parallel here. The 16th Adhyaya of the 11th Skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam is dedicated to Vibhuti Yoga. When we see the context for Vibhuti Yoga, there are subtle differences between the context for Vibhuti Yoga in Bhagavad Gita and the context for Vibhuti Yoga in Uddhava Gita. In the case of Bhagavad Gita, the context is Arjuna has to engage in doing his duty. And in the process of doing his duty, also has to cultivate devotion. In both the cases, Vibhuti Yoga is for cultivating devotion. But in the case of Arjuna, devotion to be cultivated through the performance of his action. That's the context. In the case of Uddhava Gita, it is also cultivating devotion, but it is slightly different. The context is separation from Krishna. In the case of Uddhava Gita, Uddhava is about to be separated from Krishna, and the whole discussion is how he can continue to remember Krishna, how in Krishna's absence he can discover his presence. That's the context. In the case of Bhagavad Gita, the objective is to cultivate strength and devotion through expanding Arjuna's perspective, Arjuna's perception of the world. What do I mean by expansion of perception? We are constantly perceiving entities, objects in this world. Now, how do I perceive Krishna in everything that I see? How do I expand my perception? That is the objective of Vibhuti Yoga in Bhagavad Gita, expansion of perception. In the case of Uddhava Gita, it is integration of understanding. What is integration of understanding? When I see everything in this world, how do I understand that each and every entity rests, depends, is sustained by Krishna? How every layer of reality is sustained by Krishna. And how do I understand this? while I go through a variety of experiences. In both the cases, remembrance of Krishna is the objective. In the case of Bhagavad Gita, how do I remember him? When I do my duty. I can be doing any kind of action. Arjuna is on the battlefield. Krishna is teaching him even on the battlefield, while engaged in a war, how can I still remember Krishna? In the case of Uddhava Gita, it is remembrance, but how do I remember Gita? Going through varied experiences in life, because in my life and living, I'm constantly going through a variety of experiences, different states of experiences. How do I continuously keep remembering Krishna? Only when I understand that ultimately he is the sustainer. Vibhuti Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita is where Krishna teaches how the world becomes a window to Krishna. This analogy of a window is very important to understand. We all don't look at the window. We look through the window. The world is meant to be a window to look at Krishna. Look through the world and discover Krishna. That is the objective of Uddhava Gita. If somebody keeps just looking at the window and not looking through the window, we may laugh at them. But that's exactly what we do. We look at the window, not through the window. Vibhuti Yoga is to enable Arjuna and all of us look through the window. So the world becomes a window to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. In Uddhava Gita, Krishna enables Uddhava and all of us to see his unseen hand at work in everything around. How we recognize that he is the governing principle. When we say to talk is a wonder, to see is a wonder, to laugh is a wonder. Now, when each of these experiences, like talking is an experience, seeing is an experience, laughing is an experience, loving is an experience, underneath all these experiences, there is that miraculous power of Krishna at work. This is the understanding that Uddhava Gita gives us. Life becomes magical the more we start to ponder on this fact that Krishna is the governing principle who enables us even to experience. So therefore, Uddhava Gita, through Uddhava Gita, Krishna once again gets an opportunity. But again, just say, like Arjuna, Uddhava too asks some very important questions, and that's what we're going to see today. And we will see how Krishna takes that opportunity and gets into a beautiful discussion on his vibhutis. In many ways, it is a refresher on the Vibhuti Yoga of the Gita, but with a subtle twist that Krishna gives here, and also the Vibhutis that he discusses in Uddhava Gita are also equally, or if not, more interesting. Uddhava Vacha. This is how the Adhyaya begins. Tvam Brahma Paravam Sakshat Anadyantam Apavritam Sarvesham Api Bhavanam Tranastiti Apyayodbhavaha. We must be immediately reminded of how Arjuna addressed Krishna. 10th chapter of the Gita is one of the most important chapters. Also, it is in the 10th chapter we find the essence of the Gita, which is celebrated as Chatushloki. In one of our yatras, we had Chatushloki as the topic. Immediately after the Chatushloki Gita, we see Arjuna's response. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum. We see for the first time stotra done by Arjuna in the Gita. Until then, Arjuna was only questioning Krishna. It is here that transition happens. And the same stotra of Arjuna in a different way is presented by Uddhava. Now there Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum. Tvam Brahma Paramam Sakshat, Anadyantam, Apavritam. Uddhava is echoing the same message of Arjuna here. Sarvesham api bhavanam. Tvam Brahma Paramam Sakshat. You are that Parabrahma, hey Krishna. I know that. In the case of Arjuna, it took some time to recognize that. But Uddhava from day one knows Krishna as that Parabrahman. But here it is once again, making the declaration. You are Sakshat, that Param Brahma. Anadyantam apavridam. You are Anadi. You are without beginning. You are without anta, without end. Apavritam. You are unlimited. You are Ananta. And he says, Sarvesham api bhavanam, Sarvesham of all. Bhavana, you are the one who nourishes, takes care, sustains everything. Trana, Sthiti, Apyayodbhavaha. Trana means protection. Sthiti, essentially taking care. You are the life giver, sustainer. Apyaya, destruction. Udbhava, and creation. Essentially, you are the one who is the cause of all the cosmic functions, hey Krishna. Now, why is Uddhava addressing Krishna like this? Exactly the same reason why Arjuna did as well. And Uddhava continues. Uchchavacheshu bhuteshu durgneyam akritatmabihi upasate tvam bhagavan yatha tatyena brahmanaha. Says, hey Krishna, Uchchavacheshu bhuteshu. In beings that are both high and low. When we look at living beings, there are different kinds of living beings. Now, high and low essentially is based on how expansive the consciousness is. More expansive the consciousness, higher the living being. Why human beings are considered more superior than animals? Because of the expansive consciousness. Why the devatas are more superior? Because their consciousness is even more expansive. So here he says, Bhuteshu Uchchavacheshu, in beings that are high and low, great and small, ordinary and extraordinary. Durgneyam akritatmabihi. You are difficult to know for those whose minds are not purified. Durgneyam akritatmabihi are those whose minds are not prepared. If the mind is not prepared, then the mind cannot assimilate truth. And then he says, Upasate tvam bhagavan yatha tatyena brahmanaha. On the other hand, who is a brahmana? Who has brahmajnana is a brahmana. Who is on the, or at least on the path of acquiring brahmajnana. And those who are wise are brahmanas. Therefore, the wise, those who have brahmajnana, worship you in the correct and precise manner. He is contrasting. There are akritatmanaha who fail to recognize you. No, essentially, he is highlighting our state. We are all akritatmanaha. Theoretically, at least we are better off, because theoretically we know Bhagavan is all pervading. But he is all pervading, but how do I recognize his pervasion? If he is all pervading, I must be able to recognize his pervasion. But I am unable to do that. On the other hand, the wise, the brahmanas, they are able to recognize you as all pervading, and therefore they worship you in such a manner that befits your all pervading nature. Now, if we take an example, when we look at this room, there are many electric devices and there is electricity that is flowing in this room. No. An akritatmana is one who cannot recognize the all-pervading nature of electricity. Electricity is flowing through every device, but every device manifests the power of electricity differently. A 10-watt bulb will manifest electricity, the power of electricity in one way. A 100-watt bulb will manifest the power of electricity in a different way. A TV will manifest the power of electricity in a very different way. But electricity is all pervading. Now, those who are akritatmana, those whose minds are not prepared, they cannot understand how electricity is the same, pervading everywhere. Different devices manifest the power of electricity in a different way. Whereas the Brahmanas, the wise, they see the same power, it's the same electricity that pervades each and every device that is out there. So he's essentially, what Uddhava here is saying, that it is impossible for ordinary mortals to cultivate your remembrance. Because let's come back to what is the objective eventually of Uddhava's questioning here. In life and in the way I live, I am constantly going through different experiences. The states of my experience are alternating all the time. I am engaged with this world all this time. Amidst all this, and more importantly so in our current context where we are in a perennial state of distraction all the time, how do I cultivate Bhagavan's remembrance? And therefore, here he sets the context for questioning. How do people recognize you who are all pervading? Normally speaking, if something is all pervading, it should not be difficult to discover. Now, when I say oxygen is all pervading this room, all of us at least possibly will relate to it, because we know oxygen is all pervading because we are able to. But when I say Krishna is all pervading in this room, intellectually we may start thinking about, okay, he's all pervading, but how do I recognize his pervasion? We still struggle. Now that is the challenge for ordinary people, and if that is the challenge, then how can we in our life and living recognize his presence and therefore constantly remember? It is to be understood that we don't need to search for Bhagavan. Spiritual journey is not searching. Why? Because why should we search? We search something only when it is lost. Krishna is never lost. He is always there. He is always present. So it is not searching for Krishna. It is essentially correcting our vision. As simple as that. When we correct our vision, then we see him. So it is not about he not being there or he being lost. It is more about how I correct my vision. So setting that, now Uddhava comes and asks this question. Again we see how it is a beautiful parallel to what Arjuna asks in the Gita. Uddhava vacha. Yeshu yeshu cha bhuteshu bhaktya paramarishyaha upasinaha prapadyante samsiddhim tat padavasvame. This yeshu yeshu cha bhuteshu should rhyme with another line of Arjuna's. Keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. This is what Arjuna asks Krishna. Arjuna looks at Krishna and says, Katam vidyam aham yogim swam sada parichintayan. Keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. Hey Bhagavan, keshu keshu cha bhaveshu. In what all ways can I constantly keep thinking about you, constantly stay connected with you, constantly be reminded of you? Similarly, here Uddhava is asking, Yeshu yeshu cha bhaveshu. In whichever way, in whatever way, the great sage, there is a subtle difference now we will see between Arjuna's question and Uddhava's question. Bhaktya paramarishayaha, the great sages, in whichever ways, the great sages worship you with devotion. Upasinaha. Upasina, contemplate, worship you. Prapadyante samsiddhim, and attain perfection. Samsiddhi, attaining perfection. What is perfection? God realization. That is the ultimate goal. That is perfection. Upasinaha prapadhyante samsiddhim tad vadavasvame. Tad vadavasvame. Please teach me. Please tell me that. Uddhava essentially is asking, hey Krishna, please explain to me. Please reveal the secret. How only a select few are actually able to see you and connect with you through everything in this world. Essentially, what we must understand here, the questioning also is so very important. We have discussed this many times before. In Sanatana Dharma, questioning is given a very, very significant place in learning. Inquiry, inquiry is through questioning. But, and all of us also know this, asking the right questions is the most difficult part. More difficult than the answer itself. And all of us over a period of time also cultivate this art of asking right questions. If someone like Kashyap right at the young age, possibly already has that the art of asking right questions. Questioning is very important. Now, typically a seeker may ask, what is reality? That's also a good question. What is a better question? Which is Uddhava is not asking Krishna what is reality. He's saying, how do the realized see reality? See the question, the subtle difference. Both are almost the same. The first kind of questioning is, what is reality? Explain to me. The answer to that will be slightly different to the answer to the second question. The answer to the second question will be a lot more relatable. Why? Because now the questioning has made the job of the one who gives the answer a little bit better. Now the question is not what is reality, how do the realized see reality? Uddhava is asking, how do the sages see you? So now there is an example that can be given. Now we can easily relate. It's no longer dry theory. Instead of saying this is what is reality, now this is how reality is seen, which means we can also relate. So that's therefore the question that being asked is, what are your vibhutis? One can ask that question straight away, but Uddhava is not asking that. What are your manifestations? In which all ways you manifest? That is one way of questioning. The deeper question is, how do the great rishis continuously stay connected to you? And further deeper you have to go, how can loving you become effortless? That is actually the deepest question. Because how can we love someone consistently? Those of us who have been married for so long have forgotten this. Those who are trying to get married, possibly, I don't know, nobody here. Young children, no, not for you, not yet. But the point is, when do we consistently love someone? We have to go back and brush our early lessons in life. Only when we are constantly connected with them. Remote love doesn't work that well. This is true in any relationship. We have to stay connected. I mean, even when it is remote, staying connected to technologies becomes very important. There has to be constant remembrance. So Uddhava is asking the question so very nicely. How can loving you become effortless? Because we all think loving Krishna comes with a great effort. That's why we say, what are the various sadhanas to love Krishna? We need sadhanas because we need to put in a lot of effort, exert effort, Herculean effort, because we are so busy in life. And therefore, to love the life giver, we need a lot of effort. Uddhava, therefore, is asking the question. The deeper question is, how loving you becomes so very effortless? Because that is my natural state. So the layers to this question is so very important, because normally we all think in our spiritual journey that I must remember Krishna all the time. That's very clear, because hopefully none of us have any question on that. I must remember Krishna, no doubt. But remembering Krishna, and we also know that requires a lot of effort. Now, Uddhava recognizes that here. Instead of asking, how do I remember you? His question is, how do I see the world as your reminder? When I see a temple Gopura, I'm reminded of Krishna. When I see his Divyamangala Vigraha, I'm reminded of Krishna. When I am standing in front of the altar, I'm reminded of him. But then when I'm doing a sales pitch to a client, no, I'm not reminded of Krishna. Or when I am studying, I'm not reminded of Krishna. Or when I'm doing my household chores, I'm not reminded of Krishna. So how can everything become a reminder of Krishna? That's the deeper question. And then the final objective of Uddhava is, how can I see him through everything? So the objective of Vibhuti Yoga is therefore so very profound. And more than Arjuna, we see Uddhava's line of questioning is even more deeper. Arjuna straight away asks, Keshu Keshu cha bhaveshu chintyasi bhagavan maya. How can I see? Uddhava obviously is on a higher pedestal. Therefore, he can question even better than Arjuna. He's not saying, how can I think and see? He says, please tell me how rishis see you. Uddhava himself is a rishi. But again, that is also his humility. So for our sake, he asked that question. Upasinaha prapadhyante samsiddhim tava vadasvate. Samsiddhi. Bhakti has to mature. And how bhakti matures? When Krishna moves from being an object of worship. Typically in bhakti, we all think Krishna is an object of worship. But bhakti matures when Krishna is no longer an object of worship. He becomes a lens through which we see every other object in this world. That is when bhakti matures. That is what Uddhava is asking. How can, hey Krishna, you become my lens? All of us have to wear a spectacle. Krishna spectacles. The lens becomes Krishna. Then the way with which we see the world is so very different. And Uddhava is asking, no, because that is the quickest, easiest, effortless way to remember Krishna all the time, isn't it? When we wear Krishna spectacles, we are in constant remembrance all the time. And that's exactly samsiddhim. That is where samsiddhi comes. That is achieving that perfection, attaining that state where we have no other option other than remember Krishna. That is the state we want to reach. And therefore he says, and to discover his footprints everywhere. When we go to Vrindavana, obviously we see his footprints everywhere. But can we see his footprints right here in Dubai? Or can we see his footprints wherever we go to? Discovering his footprints everywhere is when our remembrance through every state of experience. I may have alternating experiences, pain and pleasure all the time, but amidst these experiences, wearing the Krishna spectacles, if I am able to see his footprints, then I am always connected with him. And Uddhava is essentially asked this is how the rishis have attained that samsiddhi. Upasinaha, upasana. So that's such a beautiful word. Upasana is a synonym for bhakti. Upasana is a synonym for jnana. Upasana is a synonym for dhyana. All this put together is upasana. Upasana is actually sitting together with Krishna all the time. Recognizing that I am always sitting with him together. There is no separation from him. And Uddhava therefore he says, Yeshu Yeshu cha bhaveshu bhaktya tvam paramarashayaha. Now, This is the kind of question that triggers a beautiful response. Krishna, obviously, in the Vibhuti Yoga, what does he say? You can recognize my presence in the most beautiful, in the most glorious, in the most meaningful entities in this world. Anything which is glorious, anything which is beautiful, anything which gives meaning, see there the expression of my power. Now, we must understand, like we discussed in the Vibhuti Yoga in the Gita as well, when Krishna says, this is my Vibhuti, he takes various categories. It is not that the others in the category are not his Vibhutis, because every entity is Vibhuti. Which entity is not Krishna's Vibhuti? Because who is a Vibhu? The one who owns everything, the one who rules everything, the one who possesses everything. He is Vibhu, which means every entity in this creation, or even beyond, both in Nitya Vibhuti and Leela Vibhuti, everything is his Vibhuti, he is the Vibhu. So when he says, amongst this is my Vibhuti, suddenly one may ask, what about the rest? Are they not his Vibhutis? Everything is Vibhuti. But what we must understand is that some become better instruments of expressing Krishna's attractiveness than the others. Again, going back to the analogy of a 10-watt bulb and a 100-watt bulb. The 100-watt bulb is able to manifest the power of electricity much more than the 10-watt bulb. Similarly, when Krishna gives examples of Vibhutis, it is not that the rest are not his Vibhutis. It is in these Vibhutis, the chosen Vibhutis are those where we see special expressions of Krishna's beauty, special expressions of Krishna's attractiveness, special expressions of Krishna's power. Therefore, they are chosen. And when we remember that, when we recognize that, then our devotion becomes continuous. This is what Krishna says. Now, Vibhuti Yoga, therefore, is essentially to ensure that our perception is expanded and our understanding is integrated. Two important points. So let's bring together both the objective of Bhagavad Gita and Uddhava Gita. The commonality is Vibhuti Yoga is that it expands our perception. Expanding our perception means whatever we perceive, we are able to see the expression, the manifestation of Krishna in one way or the other. Integration of our understanding means everything in reality, we understand that there is one common sustaining force, one common operating principle that governs everything, workings of this universe. That is when we recognize how miraculous everything around is. Therefore here, and then he continues, Uddhava continues, he says, Ghudascharasi bhutatma. No, this is on top of what Arjuna did not ask. Arjuna stopped. Keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavan maya. Uddhava also says, Eshu eshu cha bhaveshu. But Uddhava adds one more to that. He says, Ghudascharasi bhutatma bhutanam bhutabhavana natvam pashyanti bhutani pashyantam mohitani te. Bhutanam bhutabhavana. Bhutabhavana, you are the sustaining force. You are the nourisher, the sustainer. Bhutanam, you are of all the beings. You are the nourisher, the sustainer. And Gudascharasi, you move about hidden. Bhagavan is hidden. He is not absent. So we have to again reframe our questioning. We must not ask, hey Krishna, why you are absent? We can ask why you are hidden, because he is never absent, he is only hidden. He is the Antaratma. That is why here it says Gudaha Charasi Bhutatma. One who is the Antaratma of every Bhuta, of all the beings. He says, Natvam Pashyati Bhutani. All the bhutani covers every being. All the beings, they do not see you. Pashyantam mohitani te. Even while you are seeing them, this is very important. This is one fact we conveniently ignore, or at least we, because we possibly think we have to bring up things to Krishna. When we have this conversation, you say, Krishna, you see what all is happening, as though he doesn't know. We think he doesn't see, so therefore we have to take a petition to him. Right? You see, I want A, B, C, D, E, as though he doesn't know. And look what has happened in our conversation. But he knows, he's always seeing. But we are so deluded that we think we have to bring everything to his notice, to his attention. The problem of attention is ours, not his. He is all the time attentive. And the beauty is, his attention is on each and every one of us equally. That is why he is Paramatma. And therefore, natvam pashyanti bhutani pashyantam mohitani te. This mohitani te, the delusion can be attached to natvam pashyanti bhutani or pashyantam mohitani te, both. Natvam pashyanti bhutani, the deluded do not see you. Even and pashyantam mohitani te, even while you are seeing, the deluded think you are not seeing. In both the cases, it's true. Therefore, Krishna is never lost. Our vision is lost. He is always with us. He is Bhutatma. He is Antaratma. He is Bhuta Bhavana. He is the one who is sustaining us. Unfortunately, the sustainer is not recognized as the sustainer by us. And he is constantly observing us, but we think we can hide from him. He is hidden from us, and we think we can also hide from him. So now, Uddhava's question is essentially, how do I stop overlooking the infinite hidden within the finite? The infinite is hidden within the finite. The extraordinary is hidden within the ordinary. Life becomes extraordinary when we recognize the extraordinary even in the ordinary. This is why a bhakta is always in awe, because it completely opens up our perception and expands our perception. The bhakta is now able to see the workings of the extraordinary in everything. That is why, a bhakta looks at something and laughs and we think he's mad. The world is mad, but the bhakta knows, because he's able to see Krishna's workings in everything. And he's in awe all the time. We get horripilations once in a while. A bhakta is always in a state of horripilations. And therefore, the question is, how do I stop overlooking the extraordinary, which is hidden in the ordinary? Because this is what we always overlook. How do we stop that? Therefore, he says, Ya kascha bhumau divivai rasayam vibhutayo dikshu maha vibhute tamahyam akyahi anubhavitate namamite tirtha padangri padmam. Namamite tirtha padangri padmam. Again, Uddhava knows to get the answer from Krishna. He is also submitting to Krishna here once again. Namamite, prostrations to you. Tirtha padangri padmam. Your lotus feet is the ultimate tirtha. Your lotus feet is the ultimate place of pilgrimage. Because ultimately, whatever pilgrimage we go on, wherever we go, we are only looking for his padangri, his lotus feet. So your lotus feet is the ultimate. Therefore, I bow to that lotus feet, which are the supreme place of pilgrimage. Ya kascha bhumau. Whatever manifestations are there upon this bhumi, on this bhumandala, divivai rasayam. Not only on the bhumandala, in the urdhalokas and in the adholokas. If we were to kind of visualize Brahmanda, there is urdhaloka, the upper lokas, and the adholoka, the lower lokas, the patalas, and the urdhalokas. All the manifestations are there across all these lokas. Divivai rasayam vibhutayo dikshu. in all directions, not in just one direction, in all the directions. Vibhutayo dikshu mahavibhute. Now he looks at Krishna and he addresses him as, not just as Krishna, hey mahavibhute. You are the master of infinite manifestations. You are the very source of all greatness, of all power. Ta mahyam akyahi anubhavitaste. Ta mahyam akyahi. Akyahi me bhagavan. We again see Arjuna saying the same. Te mahyam akyahi. Please describe to me. Prescribe that greatness to me. And there is one beautiful addition that Uddhava does here. He says, anubhavitate. That is, through that great, how do I experience? Ultimately, anubhava is more important. I recognize how through experience. Essentially, how do I experience Krishna? It's not just seeing Krishna. Seeing has to be rolled into experiencing. It's both. And therefore, he says, this world therefore becomes extremely significant. Because now I can experience this world, and through experiencing this world, I can experience Krishna. No, therefore, I don't anymore look down upon the world, saying, renounce this world, I have to become a sannyasi. I don't need to do that. Because the world becomes a medium for me to experience the world maker. And therefore, whatever I do in my engagement with the world, there is always a scope for me to experience Krishna. Therefore, how can I understand your manifestations of your powers in such a way that I can continue to experience you all the time? Because it is our experiences of Krishna have to be like a flow, continuum, not like spurts here and there, like a beautiful flow. When it is said that Tailadharavat avichinna santhanam, when the remembrance has to be Tailadharavat, which means remembrance and experience, the experience also has to be like a flow, unbroken flow. How do I do that? And that's the question. Uddhava essentially is looking at Krishna and says, hey, Bhagavan, I know you are everywhere. There is no question about that. But I also know that even though you are everywhere, I fail to see you. I acknowledge that. Therefore, show me, you show me. This is important. It is asking Krishna to reveal. Because I know that I have hit my limits of seeing him even though he's everywhere. And therefore, you reveal so that you make my mind to recognize you. So the bhakti, therefore, is not bringing Krishna into our life. Bhakti is noticing Krishna who is already there. Krishna is already there. We say we have to bring Krishna into our lives. No. Only when he is not there, we have to bring him. He is already there. So we have to notice. But he says, you make me notice you. Because I cannot notice you because I fail to notice you. No, I have the knowledge, I have the jnana, know that you are all pervading. But that jnana alone is not enough, because that jnana, even after acquiring that jnana that you are all pervading, I still fail to recognize you. Therefore, that jnana has to now mature. That is why we say bhakti rupa panna jnana. Bhakti is the pinnacle of jnana, maturing. And vibhuti yoga, therefore, is for this ripening of bhakti to happen. And through Vibhuti Yoga, Krishna ripens our bhakti. And now, with the right question asked, Krishna is now settled for a beautiful answer. Right? Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Evametad aham prashtaha. Prashnam prashnavidam vara. Yutsuna vinashane sapatnet arjunena vai. See, this is where we see whether Arjuna is in gratitude or not, Krishna is always in gratitude. No. Arjuna should be in gratitude because he's got answers to every question that he is asked. But what we see here is Krishna possibly is expresses his gratitude more. That is why he is Kritagnya. Bhagavan is Kritagnya because he says, I am in deep gratitude of Arjuna. Why? Because, hey Arjuna, you have asked so many good questions. Therefore, here you see, Arjuna, here Krishna is celebrating Arjuna. Hey Uddhava, the question that you have asked, my Arjuna has already asked a similar question long time back. He is celebrating him. He is ignoring, Bhagavan is ignoring the fact that after asking all the questions and after getting all the answers, what happened is so very different. But he still, because Arjuna is still special to him. Evametad aham prishtaha. Prashna vidamvara. He is also celebrating Uddhava. Uddhava, prashna vidamvara. You are a master in asking the questions. Because why? You know how to ask the right question. He says, Yutsuna vinashane sapatneir arjuneva vai. Arjuna, Yutsuna, desiring to fight, also asked me the same question. Immediately, all of us who have gone through the Gita, how can Krishna say this? Arjuna never desired to fight. He was always trying to find an excuse not to fight. So all Arjuna's questions were essentially based on his desire to avoid the fight. Whereas Krishna is celebrating. It's like, a master celebrating one student with another student, even though the other student possibly nearly flunked. He said, he got 36 out of 100. 36 out of 100. It's a great achievement. Similarly, but that's not what Krishna here is meaning. You have to know, Yutsuna, by whom? Who desires to fight. Now, we must understand, by the time Krishna comes to Vibhuti Yoga, Arjuna's desire already has changed. The moment Arjuna says, Param Brahma Parandhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Arjuna's desire is Krishna's desire. Sarvameda Dhritam Manye Yanmam Vadasi Keshava. Everything that you said, Krishna, is truth. Everything including what you said, that I should fight this war, is truth. So therefore, Arjuna, Yuyutsuna, Krishna is not lying here. Krishna is capable of lying, and there. But here Krishna is not lying. Another way, Yuyutsuna, Sapatneir Arjuneva, Sapatneir with his enemies. There are two ways to understand. Arjuna is desiring to fight with his enemies, the Kauravas. Arjuna is also desiring to fight with his own enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moda, Amatsariyas. So therefore he says, my Arjuna also asked a similar question on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's also looking at Uddhava and saying, you at least are comfortable under this nice banyan tree, nice weather, we are having a nice conversation. But on the battlefield itself, Arjuna asked a similar question. So here he's not letting down Arjuna, he's celebrating Arjuna. He says, and therefore, let me answer the answer that I gave to Arjuna. Let me repeat the answer to you, Uddhava. And how did Krishna begin his answer to Arjuna? Immediately after Arjuna asked this question, Krishna begins, Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarvabhutashayastitaha Ahamadischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antayevacha. That is the centerpiece of the Bhagavad Gita. That one shloka, right at the center. All other 699 shlokas must revolve around that. Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarvabhutashayastitaha Ahamadischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antayevacha. Some may say, earlier you said another shloka is the centerpiece. Seriously, this is the centerpiece. But the center has a slightly, bigger radius. There can be many other shlokas, but this is the crux. Because the relation, unless and otherwise we understand our relationship, nothing will fall in place. Because our actions that we do are manifestations of the knowledge of our identities. And only when I recognize, realize, and assimilate the knowledge of what my relationship is with Krishna, my actions accordingly will change. Until and unless that happens, there is no transformation that really happens. So therefore, similar to that, Krishna is answering Uddhava. He says, Aham atmodhavamisham bhutanam suhridishvaraha aham sarvani bhutani tesham stiti udbhavapyayaha. Almost similar, but little bit more profound. Krishna adds few more points here. What Krishna says there, Aham Atma Ghudha Kesha Sarvabhuta Ashayastitaha. Same here. Aham Atmodhavamisham Bhutanam. I am the Antaratma of every other entity that you can think of. And then he adds, he says, Suhrud Ishwaraha. Only Krishna can be both. An Ishwara cannot really be a Suhrud. A Suhrit cannot really be a Ishwara. Ishwara, a ruler. Suhrit, well-wisher. So, a master may want work done by the servant. He may not be wishing well all the time. A well-wisher may not be a ruler and a master. So, Suhrit, Ishwara. Also, this becomes very important. This shloka, like the other shloka, Ahamatma Godakesha, is important to understand what Krishna is going to further talk when he starts listing all the vibhutis. Because there is a great danger of misunderstanding what Krishna teaches in Vibhuti Yoga. Because he goes on saying, aham this, aham that, aham this. Krishna is not equating himself with various entities. The Vibhu is not equal to the Vibhuti. Otherwise, we will end up with a wrong mathematical equation. When he says, Aham Meruhu, Krishna is not Meru. Meru is Krishna. It's like Vasudevas Sarvaviti Samahatma Sudurlabha. So, we must, therefore, the relationship has to be understood. He is Antaratma. He is Antaryami. He is Suhrit. He is Ishvaraha. Aham Sarvani Bhutani. Tesham Stiti Uddhava Apyayaha. I am the cause of origin, sustenance and dissolution. Now, only when we put all of this together, we must understand that every Vibhuti and Vibhu, the relationship is defined by all of them. The Vibhu is Antaratma. The Vibhu of the Vibhuti. The Vibhu is the Antaryami. Now, what is the difference between Antaratma and Antaryami? Antaratma, pervading from within. Antaryami, controlling from within. He pervades from within. Why does he pervade? To control from within, to govern from within, to rule from within. He is Ishvara. He is also Suhrid. Only because he is Suhrid, he is traveling with us in our samsaric journey from time immemorial. There is no other well-wisher who will do this. The well-wishers that we know of may come with us for few months or few years at best. There is one Suhrid who has been traveling with us and has been with us amidst all our travails, amidst all our tribulations, or all our samsaric journey from time immemorial, hoping that sometime we will change and recognize it. Therefore he is Sarvabhuta Suhrid, Bhutanam Suhrid Ishvaraha, and he is the cause of origination, sustenance and dissolution. So that is how the Vibhuti is related to the Vibhu. Only when we understand this, we will appreciate. So therefore he starts with the relationship between him and every other entity. A Vibhuti, therefore, everything is his Vibhuti, but Krishna only quotes certain Vibhutis. These are privileged Vibhutis. They are privileged because they are privileged revelation of his powers, of his beauty. A flower is more beautiful than another flower. Both are Vibhutis. But this flower reminds me of Krishna's beauty more than this flower. So, everything is his Vibhuti. Krishna is equally present in each and every entity, but he may not be equally manifest in every entity. He is present in every entity, but the manifestation can be partial, semi-partial, full, depends everywhere. So, therefore, in Vibhuti Yoga, what Krishna is teaching here, step one is to understand that he is present everywhere. This is what we also see this line of questioning of Uddhava. Understand that Krishna is present everywhere. Step two, recognize also that some things, some entities reveal his greatness more than others. He is present everywhere, but some entities reveal his greatness more. Step three, use those extraordinary manifestations as gateways for my contemplation. And step four, train the mind to start contemplating on it continuously, on the indweller, the Antaratma. So, this is how Vibhuti Yoga helps us to train our mind in such a way that bhakti can blossom and grow. Aham, and he continues, Aham gatir gatimatam kalaha kalayatam aham gunanam chapyaham samyam gunini outpattiko gunaha. Immediately after establishing the relationship, he extends that. He did not do that in Bhagavad Gita, but here he further extends that relationship. Earlier in the relationship, we talked about he being the Antaratma, he being the Antaryami, he being the Ishvara, he being the Suhrud, he being the cause of all the three cosmic functions, cause, sustenance, and dissolution. Now he adds on top, he says, Aham gatir gatimatam. Whatever anyone seeks, ultimately they are only seeking me. Some realize that, some don't realize that. This is a very powerful, we will further dwell on this and we'll discuss this again, but we must understand this. Whatever we seek, whether I seek $1 million, whether I seek a house on the material side, whether I seek Krishna or whether I seek peace, every seeking essentially is for completeness, for ultimate fulfillment. It is a different story that we don't realize that seeking all of this does not bring that fulfillment. But Krishna says that seeking, the goal of that seeking is Krishna. Only some realize it. Some don't realize it. Those who don't realize fall short. Those who realize, they evolve and move. Aham gatir gatimatam khalaha kalayatam aham. Kalayatam means amongst those who measure, who calculate. I am Kala. No. We will see why Krishna is Kala. The Kala in the Gita, Kalosmi, is for a different reason. Krishna says is Kala. But here, there is a different reason why he says I am Kala. Gunanam chapyaham samyam. Among the gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. He says I am samyam. I am equilibrium, he says. I am not the three gunas. Among the gunas, I am that state of equilibrium, he says. Gunini outpattiko gunaha. Gunini, that which possesses gunas, Prakriti. Prakriti is made up of three gunas. So Gunini is something which is made up of the three gunas. Yes, outpattiko gunaha. I am the causal condition of before which the creation begins. Outpattika. There is essentially the origin, the original cause of creation itself before manifestation happens. Now, I want to close basically saying that Krishna here is building a beautiful three-dimensional structure. He says, I leave behind us takeaways for us to contemplate, and we'll come back and we'll have to dwell a lot on the shloka. But Krishna essentially is talking about three dimensions, three P's: purpose, process, potential. I am the purpose, I am the process, I am the potential, he says. Now, why he says, how do we understand this? We'll come back when we meet next time to continue Uddhava Gita. Until then, let us continue to contemplate on Krishna's Kalyana Gunas, which manifest as various vibhutis. Swakalyana Gunanantya Kritsna Swadhinata Mati Bhaktyutpatti Vivridhyatta Vistirana Dashamoditaha. That's the 10th chapter. Here we are in the 16th chapter of the 11th skanda. Let us celebrate the Vibhu and let us celebrate we being his Vibhutis. Let us celebrate our unique, inseparable relationship with him. Sarvam Se Krishna Arpanamstu.